Comic books. You gotta love them. I know I do. Sword and Sorcery #2. Did you guys know that this cover was done by Bernie Wrightson? Kind of underappreciated, if you ask me. I show you guys that to demonstrate to you that I very much love comic books. I read quite a lot of them all the time. But I also care a lot about the values and how things are performing in the market so that I can make informed purchasing decisions. Which brings us to this video here today and a PSA/reminder before we get into it that what this video is for you guys to get some information of what I'm seeing out there with all the data and GPA, and so that you can take this information and have it be informed in your comic collecting and purchasing and or selling journeys. That is what this is for, okay? I'm not here to be Bear Haas, okay? I'm not here to call doom and gloom and hate on comic books, because let's face the facts. If you're somebody out there who's watching comic book YouTube content at this moment in time, at this point in the year, or you're somebody who has a YouTube channel dedicated to comics, you're going to be in comic books for the rest of your life. So that means, ipso facto, that you love comic books. You are a fan of comic books and you are long on comics for the future. Okay? Do we understand that? Now, that said, as we get into this video here today, I think we can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time, right? We can know that we love comic books. We can know that comic books are great things to have for the future. But we can also acknowledge the fact that sometimes comic books are going down in value, right? Can we appreciate that? Okay. So with that being said, let us get into this video here today. Comic books are dying. Everything is going down. Sell, sell, sell. Get it all out of here, okay? Doom and gloom. Everybody, get rid of your collections. Go to your nearest LCS right now and sell, sell, sell immediately. Because we, ladies and gentlemen, just hit the calendar low for this month. Yes, that is right. We are going to get into the index here today, and we're going to talk about what that means for the future of comic books, at least throughout the rest of the year. So in this video, we're going to get into it. But before I do, like, comment, subscribe. You guys know what it is. Comic book index time. What is the comic book index? I take the top 100 sold books per age, silver, bronze, and copper. I pick the highest volume of grade that sells, and I count those ones. I take the final sale of the month, aka the market close, and I get all of my data from GPA. So suffice to say, if you were going to buy the top 100 most in-demand books, how much would it cost you on a month-by-month basis? Well, as we dig into the Silver Age Index here, back in August 2023, we had a push for the Silver Age at the 47,296 level. Not quite the calendar low, but essentially right around where we had been with the calendar low. Well, where did we go here in the month of September? Well, folks, we went down to the $46,506 level. That, in fact, is the calendar low for 2023. And the lowest number that we have seen since December of 2020. Now, it's very, very important to point out, and I'm going to talk about this later on in the video. For me, the goal and the model has always been built to see if we are going to cross the threshold of that 2020 price range. I mean, we all know at this point, everything was elevated in COVID. And so really it's a matter of, are we going to test levels lower than that of the pre-COVID evaluations? And if we do that, well, that in fact would be a big kind of concerning sort of doom and gloom situation in my opinion. But as of now, we're still at that December 2020 level, which I think can help us be informed of how we want to move forward as we make purchase decisions. But, we are still hanging on by a thread and things could continue to go down, as I will discuss later on in the video. But let's move forward now to the Bronze Age 100 here. Of course, in August, we were at the $37,621 level. level. That, in fact, was the calendar low for the Bronze Age. Well, where did we go in September? Well, we actually went lower, down to the $36,198 range. Not only is that the calendar low, not only is that the low for the last, say, 3 years or so, up until the boom of 2021, but that actually is lower than that of the December 2020 price when things started to get out of control. So very, very interesting to see that. And we have to sort of wonder if we are going to be testing some of those values that we actually saw earlier in 2020 when the index was at the $30,000 level. But I will give you guys my thoughts more towards the end of the video as we sort of do our wrap up. Now let's move forward here to the Copper Age Index. Now last month we actually had a big dip down to the $24,200 level in August. So where do we go from here? Well, surprisingly, we actually bounced back up for the Copper Age Index. I guess you got to buy those New Mutants 98s to the moon, I guess, but here at $26,144 in September. Now, I think that one of the reasons why we're seeing a little bit of a bounce back for this is not to say that, Copper Age is turning the corner. I just think that the July to August numbers just had a big low. We had some non-sales, we had some big drop-offs in values there. And then here we just maybe got a couple sales or a couple big sales that swung the index. So even though we're bouncing back, I think that, the trend is still on the downward slide. Now here, as we look at the side-by-side, you can see that for the most part, with the exception of the Copper Age, which again, the Copper Age this month is still the second lowest calendar year. I think all of the index in the month of September have seen the yearly low, which is the lowest month that we have seen for comic books in 2023, at least based on this model. And I know what you guys are thinking. You guys are thinking to yourselves, well, I've never been doing better with comic books, and comic books are selling great and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm not here to say that comic books are not in demand or that people aren't selling comic books or people are not buying comic books. What we're here to talk about is the aggregate value. I think this just gives us a general understanding of where the overall market is from a bird's eye view. But let me kind of get into the details here. Then we'll get into the good stuff where we break it all down. Okay, in August of 2023, for the Silver Age, we were at 47,296. Here in September, 46,506, which is a decrease of 2%. Not too bad overall, but still sliding down. In August of 2023, for the Bronze Age, we were at 37,621. September now, 36,198, a decrease of 3.5%. And then in September of 2023, we're at 26,144, an increase of 9%, but we had a decrease of 10% last month. So really in the last 2 months, we are still on the slide of 1%. Key takeaways here, silver book values. This one I thought was actually really interesting. Only 9% down this month on a book-by-book basis, where we actually saw 14% up. But the biggest thing that kept the value of the Silver Age down is the 29% non-sale. Just not a lot of people willing to pull the trigger on a lot of these books, even though there are good deals out there to be had. Bronze book value 17% down, so a lot more down for the Bronze Age, only 10% up, and then 11% non-sale is pretty much average that you would see on a month-by-month for that index. Now, digging into the month-by-month graph, this one I think we can, kind of take away a lot of learnings as we kind of focus in on the cyan line. The cyan line is the one that we saw in 2023, and it's been my speculation that the cyan line is going to mirror that of the orange line, which was 2022, where you could see, the heights were in January and March of this year, and then basically, with macro interest rates going higher, we're pushing the index down, 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 down to where I think we're basically kissing the yellow graph, which is the 2020 graph. And I would suspect that in October and November, we should see lower months for this index. And then maybe in December, we can maybe sort of level off or start to turn the corner. But again, as interest rates are high, as long as they stay high, I feel like that's always going to push the values of a lot of these collectibles down. But that doesn't mean we're in a bad spot. I actually think it's healthy that the cyan line kind of flirts with the yellow line. As you guys can see from the blue line and the red line, which was 2018 and 2019, there were many months where those lines touched each other, crossed each other, and sort of flirted with it. I think that you have to sort of retest a lot of values for comic books as things kind of go up and down and up and down and up and down. And then eventually, when you get to the end of the year, you start to have that breakout and you start to pull away. So I would think that, without the COVID money, we would see similar things where the cyan line should be kind of hovering around this 2020 line, where we see some retests and then eventually you sort of break out to separation. And I would say that, the breakout is probably going to come within the next 6 months or so. So comic book index trend lines right here, again, not drawn to scale. I think there are many times in the comic book index where, we have to kind of hover around the lower end of the trend. Of course, the trend is your friend until it is not. So, we could live below the trend, and then essentially the trend line would just sort of be a new trend line as we get new information. But, currently where we are, it feels like the silver age is sort of right where it wants to be. The bronze age is, maybe going a little bit low, which maybe means there's opportunity there, or maybe it means that the bronze age was never actually going to return the same type of values that the silver age did. Of course, we have our psychology of the investor chart. Again, we're kind of living in the capitulation despair phase. I think we might be in the despair phase for a few months right now. I mean, I think at least through December, I think it's fair to kind of be in this range, and then maybe next year we can sort of return to the mean. But let me finish out the video here with the bear and bull case. While it feels like, this video is me being very, very bearish on the hobby and me like talking, about comic books being doom and gloom and going to zero, it really isn't. It really isn't. I'm very, very pro comic book. I'm very bullish on the long-term future of it. It's just a lot of things I've talked about in this video here is that, the macro policies are going to have an effect on, what people are buying in the comic book market. I mean, there's just only so much money that can always keep all books elevated at any given time. Think about it. Every single week there is auctions, right? That just go on and sell all these books. And if there's not a buyer to elevate those floor values, then, the book is going to go for under market. And that downward pressure is going to cause an effect for, the GPA values and that sort of thing. And, it's, you guys know, you say it in the comments all the time. If people have other things they got to spend on, they got to spend on gas, they got to spend on whatever, bills and groceries and things like that. They just don't have the money to pick up like another FF48, so that's going to cause that downward pressure. Now, some of the copium I would like to throw out to you guys is that, remember, my graph, my index is built on sort of the aggregate median of all the most in demand and most bought and sold books. Now, there's a lot of books out there, especially when you start to get to the high grade, that are finally done correcting. So while I do evaluate, sort of the more mid-ish higher census area of a book like FF48, if you look at some of the high grade values of FF48 where the census is a lot lower, those values are really starting to stabilize. And if anything, there are some books like those AF15s and stuff that are actually starting to trend back up at the high grade level. So in my opinion, that's actually a good thing and a first indication of the fact that, eventually we're going to find stability, where earlier in the year, everything was dropping, right? Everything was correcting, everything was going down. And now we're starting to see, some faith be put into those books, some stabilization. And it's really sort of this mid-range and lower range that is still feeling that volatility. Now, the other thing that you could say is that maybe a lot of comic book money is being moved into the higher grade books. I've said many times on this channel where I think a lot of comic book money is being moved into golden age books. So while you have silver, bronze, and copper and modern all correcting, people are saying like, oh, golden age is still going up. But my thing is, you have to still be very, very careful, because what happens if the comic book money pool, the liquidity that is in comic books, eventually runs out? Well, that's going to have an effect on some of those golden age books as well. Luckily the census is low enough that, people can't sell it or paper hand it as much. But if you don't have people constantly having the pool of money to buy up those golden age books, I mean, that can have an effect as well, right? You have to have a healthy overall ecosystem to keep the entire market afloat. And if you don't have new money coming in, which certainly at this point, we don't have new money coming into comics and collectibles, well, that's going to have its effect. And until you have the new money coming in, you're not going to have books going back up to the moon, which is, again, ties back to the macroeconomic factors and Jerome Powell and all the boring stuff that I've probably lost all you guys in this video at this point. But, interest rates are still high. They're still trying to pull money out of the system. We're kind of probably another rate hike away from maybe doing a pause. I mean, at least that's what the market predicts. I suspect that we're going to be holding the line, at that level for the next 6 months or so. And then maybe we can start to see rate cuts in Q2 of 2024. That's at least what the market is predicting. And when we start to see those rate cuts, that might start the trend of, comic books and collectibles and all sort of things like stocks and stuff going back up again. But, that being said, we're still holding at that 2020 level. And, I think that there's no reason to suspect that outside of a black swan event, that comic books are really going to break through into Mephisto's lair. And if they do, I'll be here to call doom and gloom. Anyways, that's all right for this video. That was the update for the comic book index for the month of September. Let me know what you guys think. What have you guys been seeing out there in the market? Again, this is just one point of data, not a perfect science, just a model that I created. And so far, it's been a good indication of where the market has been going. Anyways, that's all right for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.